So let's talk about Saili. Saili is the owner and executive director of 2 companies, Synergy Home Care and Active In-Home Therapy. And she'll talk a little bit about how she came about with the second one. She is an MS in computer science and was a director at a large corporation at her last corporate job. After a successful 20-year plus in corporate IT, Saili decided to start her own business and work full-time in a job that she could be passionate about from the beginning to the end. Always an advocate volunteer in the schools and local nonprofits, focusing on people, community, and became more important to her, and she made a career switch. She sounds like a Rotarian already to me, but anyway, we won't go there. I'm gonna let her talk a little bit more about, since we're on time. So why don't you come on up and show us what you got. Okay. Welcome.
I was just trying to figure out what was the last time I was here, and I think it's almost 2 years to the day.
Oh.
Because that was the day before Bacon and Brew, because you guys all told me you're going to give me Bloody Marys the next day. And the Bacon and Brew that year was October 1st and 2nd, because I started dating my boyfriend, who's still be my boyfriend, on the 3rd. So I remember all those days. So I was here then on September 30th, 2 years ago. That was the last time I was here.
Wow.
I know, I was like, that sounds about 2 years. So, give you my background again. Most of you have heard some of it already. I was born in India. I grew up in Brazil. I decided when I was 16 years old that I was going to do computer science because I was really good at math and because we had to choose before we went to college what we were going to do. I had never seen a computer when I decided to do computer science. I did go on to college. I came to the US. I have a bachelor's in math and computer science and a master's in computer science. And I worked in IT for many, many years. Had a successful career. Was actually the director of inventory systems for Gap Inc. That's the larger corporation. I keep it generic in the bio that everybody sees, but that's who I was working for. My systems didn't work no close went to any of the Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic stores in the world. And they thought it was a really big deal. In the meantime, I started doing a lot of stuff with the schools. And all the PTAs, I love being a PTA mom. I was coaching soccer for one child and being the team mom for the other child. And involved in a couple of nonprofits. Theater's always been big in my life. I'm on the board of the Hill Barn Theater right now as well. And I really like the community stuff. And so what was happening was that I had a really demanding job in IT that I really didn't quite believe in anymore because the best thing I did with all my talents was get jeans to the store on time. I don't even wear jeans. Have you seen me in jeans? Never. So I really didn't care. I didn't think that was important. I didn't think it made any difference in my community. So I really wanted to switch to something that would make a difference in my community because my volunteer stuff that did was really what was driving my life at that point. So I went in search of something completely different. I did end up buying into a franchise because I'm trained in computer science. I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So I needed to have a system where they would teach me how to do something different. So that's how I bought Synergy Home Care in 2009. So I've been doing it for a while. It's everything I was looking for. I wanted something that was a people business. I'd be in the community. I'd create jobs. This was 2009, right? So it was at a time that creating jobs was something that really, if I could, I should do. I wanted to manage people. I didn't care how hard I worked, as long as in the middle of the day I could run to the kids' school if I wanted to. So I really wanted to also stay close to home, even though I worked a lot. I've been able to keep my kids very close to me. Both have worked in my business for many years. Not right now. I'm a very recent empty nester. So my son was working with me in my second company for a year and a half. He left the company and my home in April, and my daughter just went to college a month ago. You know, so very, very recent empty nester. Don't make me cry. I could do that. So built the company, love what I do. I am very good at it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But as Gloria said, I do own another company because when it got to be about 6 years, I call it like my 7-year itch. I'm like, okay, I got this. This is my company's established. I've got staff that's supporting me in the office, got a great reputation, but I want to do more. right? And because it's a franchise, I couldn't do any more under the franchise. I can only do what the franchise does. And I've always been very active. My 82-year-old father still jogs, you know, so, and if I'm around him on his birthday, we get up and at 6 a.m. we're jogging together. I'm a little faster than he is, but we still do. And I would go to my clients' homes, and one of the first things I'd ask, are you going for walks? Do you have any exercises that you can do? Should you be getting some physical therapy? Because I know that if you're active, you're not only doing better physically, you're also feeling better about life, you know, and your outlook is better, you're outdoors more often. So I really wanted that to be a part of their lives. I'm also one of the leaders of the Senior Roundtable in San Mateo County, and when I was at one of those meetings, somebody came up to me and said, do you remember me? I need your help. And this was somebody who wanted to sell his business, and because I knew everybody in the senior industry, he thought I'd be able to help him find a buyer. He didn't know I was looking for something myself. So, and it was physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. It was just very serendipitous, so I bought that, and that's 23 months ago. On November 1st was when I bought that. So the last time I was here, I did not have that company. I was thinking about it, I was in conversations, but I couldn't say anything at the time. So right now I've been running both, and when I'm able to help clients with both sides of it, it's really wonderful because the both sides get much richer information. And it's just like this holistic view. And I've added things since I bought the company because I see that the clients also need massage therapy, medication management, sometimes just a personal trainer. So I've added those too. So anything I can think of that a senior needs, I'm kind of adding to the second company because I can't. You know, I can't do it for the first one, but I can do it for the second one. So that's how we got here. Very good. All right. Okay. So we'll go here, and I have the clicker. All right. So a lot of you I've updated this to everything that is today, but it's very much the same presentation that I did 2 years ago. Stop me anytime. Also, I realized that, well, back then it might have not meant anything for you. Now you're actually helping a neighbor. Now there's somebody in your life that is going through stuff, or in the last 2 years you've actually experienced it, so it may mean something different to you today. Stop me at any time. I only want this to be interesting to you, and I'll skip over anything. You need to tell me when I'm running out of time, because I'll skip over anything that's not interesting and only cover the things that actually mean something to you. All right, so how many people who have had first-hand experience or second-hand experience with a family member with home care? Okay, so you know a little bit of what it is. This is not medical. We're not giving shots. We're not taking care of like large wounds. We're not pricking fingers and checking for blood sugar. We can't do anything that draws blood, basically. We can't. And it enables people to stay home. Sometimes it's just a little bit that they need, and I'll go into a little bit of the different things that they could need. And I'm using these words because they mean something. These terms, ADLs and IADLs, they mean something, and I'll explain to you why they mean something in a little bit. All right, so ADLs are activities of daily living. And we use the term ADLs because how many people have long-term care insurance here? Because long-term care insurance is going to start paying when you meet the criteria of at least help with 2 ADLs. And they use it like that. And everybody in the industry knows what ADLs are. It's help with eating, bathing, dressing, ambulating, which is like walking, toileting, and maintaining continence. If you need help with at least those 2 things, the long-term care insurance sends a social worker to the house, validates that those are needed, and then they'll start paying benefits. And if you have one of those policies, once they start paying benefits, you're done paying premiums. You don't have to pay anymore. Because now you're been paying forever, right? Then you stop paying at that time. So those are ADLs. We definitely help with those, but we also help with IADLs, which are instrumental activities of daily living. It's more like the shopping, the running errands, preparing meals, things that insurance isn't looking at, but somebody might still actually need it. And light exercise for sure. So this is part of the form that we fill out when we meet with families. You can see there's lots of different check boxes, and I can tell you no 2 people's care plans are exactly the same. But any of these are included in whatever rate we quote. It just, different people need different things. Some people are very excited that we can help them with bathing. Sometimes some people will not allow that. Some people are very excited that we will help with meals, and some people just really will not accept that. And then there's a combination of a lot of different things. Showering and taking care of personal care is a big chunk of why we come in. You know, it's a scary place and you're not letting your son and your daughter help you in the shower. You know, that's a lot of times they won't allow it. Medication reminders is a big one. That's why the pill boxes. Not taking enough medication or not remember you took it and taking it again. So we're coming in just to make sure they're taking it at the right time and the right amount. And being a fall risk is another big one, why we got brought in. And then losing their driver's license or not being safe driving. Nobody wants them to drive. They may have their driver's license, but they really would prefer somebody else to go with them and be the one who's driving. And the other big one is nutrition. The number one reason seniors end up in the hospital is because they're dehydrated. It's a really silly reason to end up in the hospital because once you're in the hospital, you're very likely to catch something else once you're there. But I've had so many clients call me saying, oh my God, my mom's incoherent. I think now she's got dementia. I'm like, just chill. Take her to the hospital. See if she's dehydrated, if she's got low sodium, she's got low potassium. And I have been right every single time. And they're like, how do you know this? You're not a nurse, you're not a doctor. I'm like, it's experience. I've seen it happen. And it affects elderly in a different way than it affects us. Like if we were dehydrated, we'd feel kind of weird and stuff. But my elderly clients, actually it affects their mind a lot more. And they'll fall if they're dehydrated, that kind of stuff. So one of the first things we do is hand a glass of water when we come to any shift and try to make sure that they're staying hydrated. Nutrition is another thing, just like you're saying, low sodium, low potassium. It is difficult to make meals, so we can make meals. And sometimes they just don't remember if they ate or not, you know. So we're there just to make sure that they're eating, or they're eating out of boxes and cans and whatever. So we can help them be a little bit more nutritious. And we'll do some housekeeping. We don't really like doing that. I mean, we don't ever take a case that's only housekeeping. Because my caregivers come to me because they want to help people. If I say you're going to go be a house cleaner, they're like, well, that's not what I signed up for. So usually there's a little bit. So if we're doing other stuff and then we have to do the laundry, we're okay with that. And make sure the kitchen is clean. If we've made a meal, of course you're going to do that. But it's not the focus of what we do. All right, so home is the number one place where we help clients. However, home is not always their actual home. We actually help a lot of people in assisted living facilities and board and cares. Families believe that you're choosing one or the other, but once they move, they're not getting one-on-one. So if they are agitated, if they're scared, if they are a fall risk, you're still going to be all those things if you move to an assisted living facility. You will have meals prepared for you, you will have activities planned out for you, but the reasons why you need one-on-one care may still be there when you move. When I bought the company, never expected it, but there's never been a time I don't have clients in an assisted living facility. And you know, just taking people places. Okay, thank you. Going to the doctor, going to the grocery store, number one, number two, right there, of what we're asked to do as far as transportation. We sometimes do hospital sitting. Somebody's in the hospital, it's a very noisy, scary, unsettling environment. They don't want mom being left alone. So a lot of times we'll do overnights at a hospital. And we call hospital sitters in that setting. I had one daughter who called me and said, my mom's in the hospital, I don't want her alone. The soonest flight I can get is in 3 days. And I said, do you need me to cover until you get here? She goes, will you do that just for 3 days and then I won't need you anymore? Of course we'll do that. So we covered the 3 days until she got there and that was done. You know, and just help them out a little bit. And we've had people who come out of town. Happens for like weddings and stuff like that. Whole family comes here. Well, grandma wants to go to the wedding, but grandma cannot party all night, right? So we come out, we help grandma get ready. We go to the wedding with her, and when she's tired, we take her back to the hotel, get her ready for bed and all that. And anywhere, I have a story that I like to tell, is we had a client that we used to help at home. He needed much more help. He ended up moving to a boarding care. A year and a half later, the family called me and said, I'm getting married. And I had resigned myself to my dad not being there. Do you think any of the caregivers that helped my dad before could possibly bring him to the wedding? And he had severe dementia, so he would act out if he was tired. So it wasn't like any family member could take care of him because they'd have to leave the wedding, you know, whenever he couldn't handle it anymore. And I said, well, nobody's available right now, but let me see what I can do. And once I started calling the caregivers who were part of that care team a year and a half ago, everybody wanted to make this work. So we did this whole, puzzle, like, well, can you do this? Can you cover for this person? Can you do this? I'll go and cover something so that you can do this. We were able to actually make that happen for that family. So that was completely unusual, but a feel-good kind of thing. All right, why do people choose home care when they can move to an assisted living facility? There's other options that they can have, because usually if they need a little bit, it's just cheaper to be home. You're not paying for a 24-hour. You're paying for, a lot of times we'll have people that want 3-hour shifts twice a week. That's really much more affordable at home. And people want to stay home. They really don't want to move. All their stuff and all their memories are right there. And then I have someplace for my family to stay when they come. That's why my parents were trying to make them move. They're like, well, what happens when you come visit? I'm like, that's why you're going to stay in this home, so we can come visit? I'll come visit you wherever you are. We'll figure out something. And because they're getting one-on-one, like I was saying, even when they move to a facility, they're not getting one-on-one. So they really want somebody who gets to know them and knows what their preferences are and can make it special for them. Flexibility in number of hours. We have a lot of people that once they come right out of the hospital, they need 24-hour care for maybe a couple of days, and then they taper down. And then they go down to, twice a week, 3 hours each time. And it can be flexible like that. Once you move to an assisted living facility, you're 24/7 forever, right? Or you do something else. And we talked about that already. So hourly, morning is the most popular time, getting people out of bed, getting them dressed, getting them fed, making sure everything is okay, making sure they know what's going on in the day. We do a lot of overnights, and I was talking about that. They're very popular. The nighttime is often when people fall and they're disoriented, or the family can't keep up at night to be able to do a good job during the day, or go to work themselves, so sometimes we're there at night. And 24-hour live-in. Respite is when there's not regular care and people want it just for maybe like a weekend. Sometimes people want it because family's going out of town for the weekend. May or may not be a regular client of ours. Sometimes we have them for a few hours and they need a lot more because they're going out of town, and sometimes they don't use us for anything other than respite, and we do that as well. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
On your medication, can you set up the medication for them?
No, we cannot. So the reason for that is that actually setting up all the pills in the pill box is dosing medication. And we are not allowed to dose medication because that is a medical decision. And I know that on the pill box, the pill bottle, it may say how many pills to take, but how many times have we gotten a prescription and then when you call the doctor and tell how you're doing, well, okay, well, take one more or take half of the amount. So that is a dosing decision, and we could make a mistake and we can't be liable for that.
Okay, so they have to set up the pills and then you just make sure that they're taking it.
So either the family sets it up, or what I was mentioning with my second company, I have a pharmacist that will come to the house and do a month at a time. She'll order refills, she'll pick them up, she'll make sure, see if anything's expired, she'll look at, drug interactions, way better than a family member can do. And that became part of the second company because I saw it was needed with the first one, right? Just because sometimes it's not easy for the family members to do that. All right, licensing. So there is a pile of paper right in front of where I was sitting. That it comes straight from the state of California, and I just wanted you guys to have that because there are people who are still a little unclear. We became licensed 2 years ago. The whole industry is supposed to be licensed. And the problem is that we have all these rules of what we're supposed to do, and we follow them, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of money. But there are still people out there operating unlicensed. And the state only has time to audit us. They don't have time to go after the people who are not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, who never really register as being licensed. So it's kind of silly. So sometimes they feel like, well, if I actually didn't go through the process, everything would be easier. But of course, I'm a good girl. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, right? And I really want to do it right. So that kind of goes through some of the differences. So let me see. This is the most important one. If anybody says, I'm going to be using a home care agency, on my brochure and on my business card, my license number is on there. You are able to go to the website, and I think it's on that piece of paper,
Yes.
and see if the agency is licensed and what their status is. And if anybody has a brochure that doesn't have a license number, that's already right there breaking the law. It should be, it's on my emails, it's on my business cards, on my brochures, and anything I hand out, because people need to be able to look up the agency. So that's the main thing. If you know anybody going through this, make sure they're using a licensed home care agency. And these are the requirements, let's see. No, this is just paperwork. I'm gonna skip all this, you don't need this.
Are the caregivers supposed to be registered?
Yes, so the caregivers have to be registered with the state. That was so perfect, you see that? The caregivers have to be registered with the state. They pass a background check, it's got a life scan, DOJ, FBI, and we cannot use them until they've cleared, and they show us cleared on the state website. They're all hired as employees, they're W-2s, I pay payroll taxes, I pay workers' comp, which is high for caregivers, current TB testing, and they have to go through 5 hours of training every year, which we provide, and we pay them for every hour they're being trained. And we train them how to notice and report abuse. We're mandated reporters. So I don't know that it's actually on these slides, but I want to say, so what we have to be as a home care agency is everybody does have to be hired as an employee. They have to be registered with the state. Everybody in my office has to go through the same background check. I guess that's it. The thing with licensing is that now it actually kind of makes you do all the right things or you can't be licensed. So it should be a no-brainer. If they're registered, they should be actually okay. I don't recommend hiring privately. Now it's even scarier than it was 2 years ago to hire privately, because I've had caregivers that through the whole licensing process, the state said this caregiver can never be around seniors again. So we have to let them go. They now can be hired privately, right? So everybody who should be watched now is not watched. So if you're hiring privately and not running background checks and not doing all that, you're gonna have an issue. You should be running background checks if you hire somebody privately. If somebody hires privately, they need to pay taxes, they need to pay workers' comp, they may be responsible for unemployment, they should be running background checks. There's all kinds of labor laws. 1 minute, okay, let's see what I want to tell you. You don't want to be an agency at once. I'm going to tell you one more thing. So, 24-hour shifts. Because of all the laws, this is the minimum I have to pay a caregiver, $246.50. In a city that has a minimum wage of $11 an hour. That is not the case in San Mateo. That is not the case in Palo Alto, not the case in Belmont. So that is the minimum in the state of California that a caregiver can be paid for a 24-hour shift. If anybody's paying less than that, including hiring privately, you are breaking the law. It's very tempting. Because I have to pay the caregiver this, I'm charging the clients twice that much, right? So that I can pay for everything else that goes with the shift. So we're looking at $700 approximately for a 24-hour shift. So if you find somebody that says, I'll do it for $300, very tempting to do it, but that opens you to all kinds of stuff. That was the main thing. All right, long-term care pays for it. I think that I'm gonna have to stop. There's no more time.
Any questions?
Well, that's for one individual, right? Staying there because they go on overtime,
Yes,
right?
overnight.
Correct.
Yeah.
First 9 hours regular pay, at least at minimum
So
wage.
if you had other individuals coming on straight time, it would be cheaper, right? So
That is correct. And when I went in front of City Council to talk about the impact of raising the minimum wage, one of the council members said, well, you can just bring people for 8-hour shifts. Now, if I have people in for 24-hour shifts, I can have 2 people for the 7-day period. Imagine somebody with dementia having 3 shift changes a day, 21 changes a week, as opposed to 2 changes in a week. It is, so there's reasons why in this industry that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop. Can you
Yes.
stay after if anybody has
Yes, of
questions?
course,
Okay.
of course.
And of course, we have a nominating committee after, for those of you that are, the three of us who stay. Yeah,